Most people think that having a good product or even services, okay, is all that it takes in order for you to be successful in your business. Well, the truth is that it all comes down to the market. So let's talk about researching your market with an aim of, dominating it. If you're new here, welcome to Zerite Network, and kindly do subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified every time we put out a new video. In fact, for this Wednesday segment, okay, starting and running your business, we will be putting out a video every Wednesday that is supposed to talk about all aspects relating to starting a business, running it, idea conception, basically all things relating to business. So, every Wednesday. Now, regarding your business, okay, you always have to ensure that there is a market for your product or your services. And that will mean understanding your customers, competition, and the market dynamics. But what does it mean to understand your market? Well, for starters, it comes down to finding out whether or not people need your product or service and are able to pay for it. That is just simple economics, okay? The question is there demand for your product or your services? And demand alone is not enough, because there is also the question of whether or not there are other products out there, okay? Other products or other services that are solving the same thing or the same need that your product or service is solving. In short, we're talking about supply. So yes, supply and demand do define the market. But before you talk about, I didn't do any economics or I never liked economics, with the internet, okay? Facebook, Google, whatever. It is easier for you to actually do your research in order for you to find out the level of demand for your product, the level of supply that is already out there from other, your competitors or potential competitors. Now, some of the things that your business needs to know will include the market. And as far as the market goes, you need to understand A, the size of the market, B, barriers to entry. The thing to remember is that if the market is easy to get into, then that isn't something that you're supposed to be celebrating, because if it is easier for you to get into that market, it is also easier for just about anyone to get into that market. In fact, think of it this way, okay? Let's say you're into YouTube, so subscribe. But let's say you're into YouTube, right? So what does it take in order for you to start a YouTube channel? Simple. A Gmail account, right? Basically a Gmail account and your ability to post videos. So that is not exactly hard to get into market, assuming that is your plan, that I'm going to start a YouTube channel and then that's it. So the entry barrier to, it's low. Anyway, number C, the other thing that you need to understand about your business is the market shrinking or is it growing? So talking about shrinking and growing, think about the online market for education, the online learning market. It's growing, right? Which is not necessarily the same for a market like bookstores. So physical books, that market is shrinking. Why? Because we have services like Kindle or Audible, basically the kind of people who decided to, turn books into ebooks and turn books into audiobooks. And speaking of online learning, if you are interested in any of my online courses, there's a link in the video description where you can access them. And also, let's say you're not interested in any of my courses, but you're interested in many other courses. There is also a link in the video description that will take you to one of the online learning platforms called Skillshare, okay? So click on that link if you're interested, subscribe, or join, and you'll get 2 free months. So, and then, you can learn all stuff that you want to learn from various other people. Now, back to your business. The other thing that you need to understand, number D, how is the market affected by economy? So these are things that you need to know about your market. But then there is also, that is just the market. Now, number 2, because number 1 was the market. Number 2, you need to know your competitors. The thing about your competitors is that you need to know a lot of things about them, okay? You just can't say that, there is always going to be competition. So you have to know your competitors' names, size, location, their unique selling point, how do they engage their customers. Understanding your competitors is going to be a key thing. There's a reason why guys like Bezos and Elon Musk and Patrick Bet-David of Valuetainment. There's a reason why these guys keep on winning. It's because they're not lazy, okay, for starters. I mean, as far as you can tell from their results. So you have to start researching. You can't afford to be lazy. You can't afford to say, I have a good product and therefore I can sit back and relax. No. Find out everything you can find out about your competitors. And well, a few minutes down the video, we're going to talk more about what you can do to win as far as your competitors are concerned. Now, the other thing that you also need to know is your customers. Regarding your customers, you need to understand the nature of the transaction. Is it B2B, B2C, C2C? I mean, we talked about all that in our previous video, okay? Is the transaction business to business? Is the transaction business to customers? Is the transaction customers to customers? And that is just the start as far as your clients are concerned or your customers are concerned. You also need to know how sensitive they are to the price. So it's an activity, it's something that you can start thinking about. Now, let's say you want to start a business that repairs cars, basically a garage, a mechanic thingy, okay? So think about some of the things that you need to know about your competitors. And, well, you can leave them in the comment section. It's an exercise in trying to figure out whether or not, I mean, yes, you could be saying, I'm not interested in that business. That is not the point. The point is, assume you want to start that business, okay? What are some of the things that you need to know about your competitors? So it's a business in your hometown, so you can just leave that in the comment section. Now, let's move on. Let's talk about evaluating your competitors and basically making your business enterprise a success. One of the easiest, or rather one of the simplest way to try and evaluate your competitors is by looking at the factors or the nature of the competition, the factors or the forces that contribute to the competition in that market. And so some of those factors will include asking yourself, or rather finding the answer to some of those factors, or finding out more about those factors, will include you finding answers to questions such as, how easy is it to get into that market? We've talked about entry barriers, okay? Just touched on it. But the entry barrier is one of the reasons why some companies enjoy monopolistic kind of competition. Companies like Google, okay? Companies like Facebook. Probably saying, well, it's easy to come up with their social media. Well, yeah, sure, but how big is it going to be? So companies like YouTube, okay? I mean, why do they enjoy that monopolistic sort of competition? It's because the entry barrier to those markets is not as easy, okay? It's not as low as it is with other sort of businesses. Like if you want to create your own platform, your video platform that become the biggest, you have to account, you have to take into account a lot of factors, okay? Servers and, softwares and whatever. So, how easy is it to enter into that market? Now, when it comes to understanding market barriers, some of the things that you need to look at will include things like how high or low is the capital cost of entering the market. That is important because guys like Richard Branson or Bezos, we've mentioned Bezos, or even Elon Musk, these guys are not necessarily worried about another player coming in and getting a share of their space market or their space going to space business. Why? Because that is one capital intensive business to get into. So the entry barrier is high. And so if you are into a business and that market to get into the entry barrier based on capital is that high, then yes, you will be worried about the people already there, but you're not really worried about the people who are going to get into, okay? So into that market. So that's the first thing you need to ask yourself when it comes to figuring out the entry barriers to that market, the cost of capital. The other thing you also have to ask yourself is legal issues relating to the market. And number C, economies of scale. Now, economies of scale are important. You see, if you're a small business, okay, and you're dealing in, I don't know, whatever it is that you're dealing in, okay? So at some point, you have to ask yourself, where am I going to get raw materials? Now, think about it. If you have to import raw materials from another country, and you can actually afford to do that in bulk, then that makes it easier for you to buy those things at a cheaper price, as opposed to another small business that has to buy those things from a local supplier who already got them from another country. That is economies of scale in a nutshell, okay? So the kind of benefits you're enjoying from buying things in bulk. So that can be easier for big companies, and it can be something else for small companies. Basically, it kind of just comes down to the cost of acquisition. So that is something that you need to also look into. Number 2, are there other products that solve similar problems to yours? How much do they cost? And how loyal are the customers? When it comes to customers and your product, it sort of just comes down to how you solve their problems. People don't really buy things because they like you. People buy things because they are under the assumption that those things are going to solve their problems. Like this story, which goes something like this. Okay, so the Americans were trying to figure out how to come up with a pen that can write in space. So what was the problem here? Writing in space. And what did the Russians do? The same story, apparently the Russians just used a pencil. So problem solving techniques. And so that is the reason why if you're comparing other products or services to yours, look at them in terms of how they solve the customer's problem. Next, do buyers overwhelm suppliers, or is it the other way round? This is important because if suppliers are many, then what does that do to the buyers? It kind of just means that the buyers become powerful because as suppliers, you have to compete for their attention. But so let's say you find an answer to all those questions. Then you're still left with one thing, coming up with your competitive strategy. So when it comes down to coming up with your competitive strategy, then here are some of the techniques, or rather here are some of the things that you can do. And the first one is cost leadership. And by cost leadership is what I mean. You have to find a way, okay, to bring down your cost of production or all costs associated to you doing business. Take this example. Let's say you are selling your product for $50, right? And the cost of production is like, I don't know, $10 on average. And then you find a way to bring it down to like 3 point something dollars. And your competitor is still doing it at 10. That kind of just, tells you what will happen as far as your profit margin is concerned. So if you can find a way to lead by cost, then that gives you an advantage over your competitors. Number 2, differentiation. Of course, there are situations when you can't bring down your cost, but then that just means becoming unique. So you have to be different. There's a reason why people buy Nike shoes. But if you do a blind person's test, okay, just tell somebody put on those sneakers with your eyes closed, or you put on those sneakers with your eyes closed, it's not necessarily the case that they will tell you, okay, these are Nikes and these are something. But once they see the brand, then that just happens. Those are Nikes and I have to get them. So that is them being different, which is another thing that you can do as far as your business is concerned. In fact, you could still manage to find a way to reduce your cost and be unique if it is possible. Number 3, focus on a niche market. Having a niche, okay, is, it is a good idea because if you can focus on your niche as far as your market is concerned and aim at taking it over completely, then that puts your business in a better position to compete with other businesses. Here's an example. Let's say you're a tailor, okay, you're making suits. Now, you could make suits and hope that people are going to buy, or you could just look at your hometown or your city and decide to go after lawyers in that place. And so they become your niche market. And so you go after the lawyers and you take over that market completely. So the niche thing can help you to compete by developing a monopoly on that niche. So that's it. If you have any question, do let me know. Also remember to like, comment, share, whatever. Just help the channel to grow. I'm Moses from Zerite Network, and I'll see you in our next video.